Stop right there, before the echoes catch up to you. Do you feel that chill crawling up your spine? That's not fear, that's recognition. Hell knows your name, and heaven is watching what you did with it. They sent you to hell on purpose, not the dramatic kind with fire and screaming choirs. No, they sent you to the quiet hell, the one where nobody checks on you, the one where the doors close softly and everyone pretends you were never inside. They sent you to the place where hope starves slowly, where time stretches, where the only sound is your own thoughts circling like vultures. They thought that would end you. They thought hell was a burial ground. They forgot something dangerous about you. You don't die where others collapse. You adapt, you listen, you learn the language of pain until it starts answering you back. Down there, you weren't screaming. You were studying. You weren't begging. You were cataloging every betrayal, every silence, every smile that disappeared the moment you needed it. You watched saints turn coward. You watched angels in human skin walk past you without stopping. And something snapped, not in a loud way, not in a cinematic way, but in a precise, surgical way. The part of you that expected fairness died. The part of you that needed permission evaporated. That's when the real transformation started. Hell didn't make you cruel. It made you clear. Hell didn't break your faith. It stripped the lies off it. Hell didn't corrupt you. It introduced you to yourself without makeup. They thought you'd come back bitter, feral, unpredictable, in the wrong way. They expected rage. They prepared for madness. What they didn't prepare for was precision. They didn't anticipate restraint. They didn't imagine you'd come back calm, with your eyes open and your spine rewired. Because when you crawled out, you didn't come alone. You came back with angels, not the clean, glowing, obedient kind they put in storybooks. No, you came back with the kind of angels forged in collapse, the kind with scars instead of halos, the kind that don't sing, they observe, the kind that stand behind you silently while people feel uneasy and can't explain why. Angels of pattern recognition, angels of patience, angels of timing, angels that whisper, not comfort. You didn't become holy, you became untouchable. Now there's a paradox living inside you, and it terrifies them. You can be gentle without being weak. You can be ruthless without losing control. You can walk into a room carrying hell in your bones and heaven in your posture, and nobody knows which side you'll let speak. That unpredictability, that's not chaos. That's power refined by suffering. They look at you now, and something doesn't add up. You were supposed to come back loud, damaged, desperate to prove something. Instead, you came back selective, quiet, observant, smiling at moments that make no sense to them. You don't chase validation. You let it orbit you. You don't explain yourself. You let confusion do the work. And here's the part they really can't handle. You don't hate them. You understand them. You see how fear made them small. You see how comfort made them cruel. You see how the same system that tried to bury you is already chewing on them from the inside. And because you've already been to hell, you don't flinch at threats. You don't rush decisions. You don't panic when the lights flicker. You've already survived the worst chapter. Everything else is leverage. They can feel it, that shift, that wrongness in the air when you enter. Conversations change tone. People over-explain, eyes dart, jokes land awkwardly, because on some unconscious level they know. You are not reacting anymore. You're choosing, and someone who chooses after hell is not someone you can control. You are the saint who learned when to stop sacrificing. You are the psychopath who learned restraint. You are the angel who understands demons because you lived among them without becoming one. That balance? That's what makes you dangerous. You don't need to announce your growth. Hell already certified it. You don't need applause. Angels don't clap. They stand guard. And while others are still arguing about right and wrong, you've moved to a different question entirely. What works, what lasts, and what ends now? So let them whisper. Let them rewrite the story to make themselves feel safer. Let them pretend your return was luck, timing, coincidence. Deep down, they know the truth, and it keeps them awake. They sent you to hell to erase you. You came back with angels to replace the system that tried. And the most terrifying part? You're just getting started. They still think the story is over because you're standing still. They confuse silence with exhaustion. They confuse patience with fear. They don't understand that when someone survives hell, stillness isn't surrender. It's calculation. You're not resting, you're calibrating. Every step you take now is lighter, not because the weight is gone, but because you learned how to distribute it. Pain taught you efficiency. Betrayal taught you pattern recognition. Loss taught you where not to invest your soul again. You didn't come back loud because loud is for people who still need witnesses. You came back inevitable. And here's where their anxiety really spikes. You don't rush revenge. Hell burned that impulse out of you. Down there, you learned that revenge is emotional debt, and you already paid enough. What you came back with is something far colder, far more unsettling. You came back with consequence. You came back knowing that the most devastating outcomes don't look like attacks. They look like absence, like access revoked, like doors that never open again. You walk past people who once controlled you, and you don't even acknowledge the power they thought they had. That's not arrogance, that's awareness. You saw how fragile their authority really was when things got dark. You watched them fold under pressure you carried for years. You saw how quickly their morals bent when survival wasn't guaranteed. And now they feel exposed because you don't argue anymore, you don't over-explain, you don't try to be understood by people who benefited from misunderstanding you. You let them sit with their own discomfort while you move forward with a clarity they can't access. That's the angelic part they don't recognize. Angels don't scream. They don't convince. They don't chase belief. They execute alignment. They show up exactly where they're supposed to be, exactly when the system is weakest. And hell trained you for timing better than any mentor ever could. You learned when to speak and when silence would collapse the room on its own. You learned that unpredictability doesn't mean chaos. It means no one can preload a response to you. They can't study you anymore because the version they cataloged died underground. The you that needed approval burned. The you that waited for fairness dissolved. The you that questioned your worth suffocated and never came back. What rose instead is something cleaner, sharper, more contained. You don't carry rage, you carry resolve. You don't bleed everywhere. You choose where the pressure lands. You're no longer reactive, you're gravitational. People adjust around you without realizing why. Opportunities drift closer, threats hesitate. Even hostility arrives unsure of itself. That's what happens when hell fails. It exposes a terrifying truth. If you can survive the worst without losing your center, nothing else gets to define you. Not praise, not rejection, not loss, not success. You become self-referenced, internally anchored, immune to manipulation because you've already lived without illusions. They sense that, and it rattles them because they can't bait you anymore. They can't rush you. They can't shame you back into old versions of yourself. You don't flinch at their opinions because you've already faced annihilation and didn't blink. Their words feel light now. Their threats feel theatrical. Their judgments feel late. You're not cold. You're finished negotiating with fear. And that's the real reason they're nervous, not because you're angry, not because you're powerful in the obvious way, but because you're composed. Composure after hell is lethal. It means you've already accepted every possible outcome. It means there's no lever left to pull, no button left to press, no nightmare left to threaten you with. You've already lived it, so you move differently now. You choose your battles with surgical calm. You invest your energy where it compounds. You let people reveal themselves instead of interrogating them. You understand that angels don't descend to save everyone. They descend to enforce balance. And balance is shifting. They can feel it in small moments, in the way you pause before responding, in the way you look at situations without urgency, in the way you don't need to prove you belong. You operate like someone who knows the terrain because you mapped it in the dark. Hell didn't turn you into a monster. It stripped you down to something far more dangerous, someone who knows who they are without needing the world to agree. And that's why when they look at you now, there's awe mixed with fear, respect tangled with regret. Because they realize too late that hell wasn't your end. It was your initiation. You didn't come back to be forgiven. You came back calibrated, aligned, accompanied. And the angels that walk with you now, they're quiet, they're patient, and they don't miss. They keep waiting for you to snap. That's the mistake. They're conditioned to believe pressure always creates explosions. They don't understand refinement. They don't understand what happens when pressure is applied for so long that it stops hurting and starts sculpting. You're not volatile anymore. You're forged. Hell trained you to live without guarantees. That's why nothing shakes you now. When people threaten to leave, you don't cling. When opportunities vanish, you don't panic. When plans collapse, you don't spiral. You've already lived in the absence of safety. Everything else feels optional by comparison. That's why your presence feels unsettling. You're not desperate. You're not hungry in the way they understand. You don't chase. You don't beg. You don't overextend. You move like someone who knows they can survive without the room. And that terrifies people who rely on rooms to feel powerful. They don't know what to do with someone who isn't afraid of being alone. Hell cured you of that fear. Down there, you learned the difference between loneliness and clarity. You learned that silence isn't empty, it's revealing. When there's nothing left to distract you, truth gets loud, and you listened. You listened to the parts of yourself you used to drown out. You listened to the instincts you were told were wrong. You listened to the voice that said, "Stop shrinking." That voice didn't comfort you. It instructed you. Now when you walk through life, you're not guessing. You're recognizing. You see patterns before they form. You sense intentions before they speak. You feel shifts in energy before words catch up. That's not paranoia. That's adaptation. That's what happens when survival sharpens perception. They call it intensity because they don't have language for it. You're not intense. You're awake. And the angels that came back with you, they're not floating above you with light and mercy. They're standing behind your eyes. They're the calm that shows up when chaos expects panic. They're the restraint that makes your moves impossible to predict. They're the patience that lets enemies expose themselves without you lifting a finger. You don't interrupt downfall. You allow it. That's the paradox that breaks people's minds. You don't dominate by force. You dominate by refusing to participate in games designed to drain you. You let people play themselves out while you conserve energy. You let narratives rot while you build quietly elsewhere. You don't correct lies about you anymore. Lies collapse on their own when you stop feeding them. Truth doesn't need defense. It needs time. And hell taught you how to wait without decaying. You are no longer fueled by emotion. You are fueled by alignment. That's why your anger doesn't spill. It focuses. That's why your kindness doesn't weaken you. It disarms. That's why your silence doesn't signal absence. It signals choice. Everything about you now is intentional, and intention is the one thing chaos can't counter. They sense that when they look at you. They feel like they're standing in front of something ancient, something that has already seen the worst-case scenario and didn't flinch. You don't react to intimidation because you've already been reduced to nothing and rebuilt yourself without witnesses. What can they take from you now? Status? You survived invisibility? Approval? You lived without it? Comfort? You learned to function without it? Control? You reclaimed that in the dark. You're no longer negotiating with life. You're authoring it. And the most dangerous part, the part they never see coming, is that you didn't lose your humanity. Hell tried. It stripped away illusions, not empathy. It burned off weakness, not compassion. You still feel deeply, but now your feelings don't control you. You control where they go. That makes you unpredictable in the purest sense. You can be merciful without being naive. You can be ruthless without being cruel. You can walk away without hatred. You can stay without attachment. People don't know how to categorize you anymore, and classification is how systems neutralize threats. When they can't label you, they can't contain you. When they can't predict you, they can't outmaneuver you. That's why they hesitate now. That's why their confidence cracks when you're calm. That's why their authority feels performative around you. Because somewhere deep down, they know you're operating from a place they can't access. You didn't just survive hell. You integrated it. And integration is irreversible. You carry fire without burning. You carry light without blinding. You carry darkness without being consumed by it. That balance is rare. It doesn't come from success. It comes from surviving collapse with awareness intact. It comes from choosing not to become what hurt you while still refusing to stay small. So let them wonder, let them whisper, let them speculate about what changed. The truth is simpler and far more unsettling. Hell failed to erase you. It clarified you. And the angels you returned with aren't here to save anyone. They're here to make sure you never fall back asleep again. They keep circling you, trying to find the crack. They replay old footage of who you used to be, hoping muscle memory will drag you backward. Every step you take now is lighter, not because the weight is gone, but because you learned how to distribute it. Pain taught you efficiency. Betrayal taught you pattern recognition. Loss taught you where not to invest your soul again. You didn't come back loud because loud is for people who still need witnesses. You came back inevitable. And here's where their anxiety really spikes. You don't rush revenge. Hell burned that impulse out of you. Down there, you learned that revenge is emotional debt, and you already paid enough. What you came back with is something far colder, far more unsettling. You came back with consequence. You came back knowing that the most devastating outcomes don't look like attacks. They look like absence, like access revoked, like doors that never open again. You walk past people who once controlled you, and you don't even acknowledge the power they thought they had. That's not arrogance, that's awareness. You saw how fragile their authority really was when things got dark. You watched them fold under pressure you carried for years. You saw how quickly their morals bent when survival wasn't guaranteed. And now they feel exposed because you don't argue anymore, you don't over-explain, you don't try to be understood by people who benefited from misunderstanding you. You let them sit with their own discomfort while you move forward with a clarity they can't access. That's the angelic part they don't recognize. Angels don't scream, they don't convince, they don't chase belief. They execute alignment. They show up exactly where they're supposed to be, exactly when the system is weakest. And hell trained you for timing better than any mentor ever could. You learned when to speak and when silence would collapse the room on its own. You learned that unpredictability doesn't mean chaos. It means no one can preload a response to you. They can't study you anymore because the version they cataloged died underground. The you that needed approval burned. The you that waited for fairness dissolved. The you that questioned your worth suffocated and never came back. What rose instead is something cleaner, sharper, more contained. You don't carry rage, you carry resolve. You don't bleed everywhere, you choose where the pressure lands. You're no longer reactive, you're gravitational. People adjust around you without realizing why. Opportunities drift closer, threats hesitate. Even hostility arrives unsure of itself. That's what happens when hell fails. It exposes a terrifying truth. If you can survive the worst without losing your center, nothing else gets to define you. Not praise, not rejection, not loss, not success. You become self-referenced, internally anchored, immune to manipulation because you've already lived without illusions. They sense that, and it rattles them because they can't bait you anymore. They can't rush you. They can't shame you back into old versions of yourself. You don't flinch at their opinions because you've already faced annihilation and didn't blink. Their words feel light now. Their threats feel theatrical. Their judgments feel late. You're not cold. You're finished negotiating with fear. And that's the real reason they're nervous. Not because you're angry, not because you're powerful in the obvious way, but because you're composed. Composure after hell is lethal. It means you've already accepted every possible outcome. It means there's no lever left to pull, no button left to press, no nightmare left to threaten you with. You've already lived it, so you move differently now. You choose your battles with surgical calm. You invest your energy where it compounds. You let people reveal themselves instead of interrogating them. You understand that angels don't descend to save everyone. They descend to enforce balance. And balance is shifting. They can feel it in small moments, in the way you pause before responding, in the way you look at situations without urgency, in the way you don't need to prove you belong. You operate like someone who knows the terrain because you mapped it in the dark. Hell didn't turn you into a monster. It stripped you down to something far more dangerous, someone who knows who they are without needing the world to agree. And that's why when they look at you now, there's awe mixed with fear, respect tangled with regret. Because they realize too late that hell wasn't your end. It was your initiation. You didn't come back to be forgiven. You came back calibrated, aligned, accompanied. And the angels that walk with you now, they're quiet, they're patient, and they don't miss. They keep waiting for you to snap. That's the mistake. They're conditioned to believe pressure always creates explosions. They don't understand refinement. They don't understand what happens when pressure is applied for so long that it stops hurting and starts sculpting. You're not volatile anymore. You're forged. Hell trained you to live without guarantees. Feel that silence? That's the sound of rooms going quiet after someone says your name, and everybody else nods like it was obvious the whole time. You didn't hear it, but it happened. They asked around, quietly, nervously, off the record. They leaned in, lowered their voices, tried to be clever about it. They wanted dirt, doubt, weakness, something, anything, to calm the fear crawling up their spine, and every single mouth betrayed them. Yep, it's you. No debate, not even close. That one, that's the best. Now here's the funny part. The part that makes this delicious. Their own sources are laughing, not at you, at them. Because you didn't just win. You turned their information network into a comedy club. See, you weren't supposed to be unanimous. You were supposed to be controversial, divisive, questionable. There were supposed to be mixed opinions. That's how weak systems breathe. But you broke that expectation so clean it scared them. No friction, no debate, just agreement. That's when panic starts wearing a professional smile. You see, when enemies hear rumors, they get angry. But when they hear consensus, that's when the survival instinct kicks in. Because consensus means something has already settled. It means reality has made up its mind. You didn't argue your case. You didn't campaign for respect. You didn't explain yourself. You became undeniable. That's the paradox they can't process. You look calm, but you destabilize systems. You speak softly, but your presence rearranges hierarchies. You wear control like a saint, but your precision cuts like a psychopath. Angel on the surface, demon in the execution. They tried to profile you, tried to chart your rise like it was a formula, tried to map your behavior so they could predict the next move. But unpredictability is your native language. You evolved in pressure. You learned to smile while everything burned. You learned restraint while others learned excuses. You learned timing while others begged for attention. That's why when they asked, nobody hesitated. Because talent can be debated. Skill can be challenged. Luck can be dismissed. But presence is felt. And you have that kind of presence that makes grown people second-guess their careers. They thought you were playing defense. They thought you were surviving. They thought you were absorbing hits. What they didn't realize is that you were calibrating. Pain didn't weaken you. It sharpened your judgment. Isolation didn't shrink you. It refined your voice. Being underestimated didn't humble you. It taught you where the blind spots are. So now when their own insiders laugh, it's not mockery, it's disbelief. Disbelief that they didn't see it sooner. Disbelief that you were right there the whole time. Disbelief that the threat never announced itself. You didn't need to dominate the room. The room adjusted to you. That's the kind of power that terrifies people who rely on noise. Because loud authority can be challenged. But quiet inevitability, that just arrives. They're laughing now because laughter is the last defense before acceptance. It's the nervous release of people realizing the hierarchy already changed without permission. And here's the part they'll never admit out loud. They're relieved it's you. Because if someone had to be that good, if someone had to be that unavoidable, they're glad it wasn't someone reckless. Your controlled chaos, measured madness, a blade with discipline. You understand both sides, the light that earns trust and the dark that enforces outcomes. You know when to heal and when to end discussions permanently. That balance, that's not taught. That's forged, so let them laugh. Let the whispers turn into smirks. Let the sources exchange looks like they just watched a magic trick they can't explain. Because laughter is just fear trying to stay social. And you don't need validation. You already passed the test you didn't know was happening. The verdict came back clean, unanimous, embarrassingly clear. You're not the rumor anymore. You're the reference point. And that's the part that keeps them awake. The shift from rumor to reference. Because once you become the standard, everything else starts looking small. Now every time someone new walks into their world, they don't ask who's good anymore. They ask, are they anywhere near you? That's humiliation wrapped in professionalism. They thought they were gathering intel. They thought they were stress testing your reputation. What they actually did was confirm their own irrelevance. See, when sources laugh, it's not because something's funny. It's because the outcome is already decided, and pretending otherwise feels childish. It's grown adults realizing they're late to a conclusion that arrived months ago. And you never announced your arrival. You didn't roll in with speeches or flags or declarations of greatness. You let consistency do the dirty work. You let results whisper until whispers turned into certainty. That's why they can't attack you directly. Because how do you slander someone when everyone already agrees? How do you discredit a pattern that keeps repeating? How do you question dominance when it's calm, quiet, and surgical? You don't move like a conqueror. You move like gravity, and gravity doesn't brag. It just pulls everything into alignment. They tried to frame you as intense, then realized intensity was just the surface symptom. What scared them was your clarity. You don't flinch, you don't rush, you don't over-explain, you wait. And when you move, something irreversible happens. That's the demon they can't name. Because demons are supposed to be chaotic, and angels are supposed to be gentle. You're neither. You're the contradiction they can't file away. You can be kind without being weak. You can be silent without being passive. You can let people talk themselves into mistakes and then calmly step over the wreckage. That's not aggression, that's mastery. So now they replay old conversations in their head, moments where you said less than everyone else, but meant more. Moments where you smiled and they thought they were ahead, not realizing you were already done. They're laughing now, but it's the kind of laugh that carries regret. The kind that says, yeah, we messed this one up. Because deep down, they know something else, too. If you wanted to be loud, you'd dominate the entire space. If you wanted to be cruel, you'd leave nothing standing. If you wanted revenge, you'd be unstoppable. And the fact that you don't, that restraint, that's the scariest part. It means you're not acting from emotion, you're operating from choice. Pain didn't turn you bitter, it turned you precise. You learned where people fold. You learned how systems protect themselves. You learned how ego blinds decision makers right before collapse. And instead of exploiting it recklessly, you cataloged it. That's why when they asked around, nobody warned them. Nobody said, be careful. Nobody said, watch out. They just smiled and said, yeah, that one's different. Different is what people say when they don't have language for evolution. You didn't become the best by chasing it. You became the best by outlasting illusions. You watched others burn energy proving themselves. You conserved yours. You watched them overplay their hands. You waited for the table to tilt. And now the game doesn't even feel competitive anymore. They can laugh. They can cope. They can pretend this is amusing instead of alarming. But they all felt the same thing when the answer came back unanimous. That drop in the stomach. That quiet realization. oh, it's already over. Because when everyone agrees without coordination, when the verdict arrives before the trial, when even insiders stop pretending, that's not hype, that's inevitability. And you're not here to celebrate it. You're here to decide what happens next. And that decision, that quiet, terrifying freedom to choose what happens next, is what separates you from everyone still trying to be seen. Because now you're standing in a strange place, above competition, below mythology, right in that narrow corridor where power stops being loud and starts being felt. They don't talk about you like a rival anymore. They talk about you like weather, unavoidable, uncontrollable, something you plan around instead of confront. That's why the laughter coming from their sources isn't joy. It's surrender wearing a grin. It's the sound people make when resistance finally feels pointless. You've noticed it, haven't you? How the question's changed. It's no longer, can they do it? It's, what happens if they decide to? That's the pivot point. That's where saints turn dangerous and monsters learn restraint. You've been on both sides of that line. You know what it's like to be doubted, dismissed, treated like potential instead of presence. You know what it's like to watch lesser minds posture while you quietly absorb the mechanics of the room. So when consensus hit, when every door whispered the same answer, you didn't celebrate. You recognized the weight. Because being the best isn't a trophy. It's a responsibility nobody asks for. Now every move you make teaches someone something. Every pause you take unsettles someone. Every silence gets interpreted like a signal. They watch you for mistakes that never come. They wait for arrogance you don't need. They hope you'll crack, lash out, overplay. But you don't. You let them project. You let their fears write stories about you that you never confirm or deny. You let their imagination do the heavy lifting. That's psychological warfare without lifting a finger. You understand something most people never will. Control isn't about domination. It's about tempo. You set the pace. You decide when things accelerate and when they suffocate. You let others exhaust themselves sprinting while you walk, steady and unreadable. And the darker truth, the one nobody wants to say out loud, is this. They're relieved you're not cruel, because they sense it. That if you leaned into the darker half of yourself without restraint, if you stopped caring about optics or mercy or balance, there would be nothing they could do. They see the angel in you, the discipline, the patience, the fairness, and they pray that side stays in charge. But they also feel the other half, the one forged in silence, the one that learned through loss, the one that doesn't need approval to act. That's the demon they laugh about, because laughing keeps it at a distance. You didn't become this by accident. You became this by surviving moments that would have broken people louder than you. You became this by choosing growth when resentment would have been easier. You became this by mastering yourself before trying to master outcomes. So now, when sources laugh, it's not because they underestimate you. It's because they understand you just enough to know they're outmatched. They laugh because the alternative is admitting fear. And fear, once spoken, spreads. You've already won the invisible war. The one that happens before moves are made, before strategies are announced, before alliances even form. They asked the question too late. The answer was already living in the room every time you walked in. So don't rush, don't explain, don't announce the next chapter. Let them keep laughing, let them keep pretending this is amusing instead of historic. Because while they're busy processing what you are, you're deciding what you'll become. And whatever that is, they won't hear it coming. And the truth is, you've already crossed the point where explanation would help anyone sleep at night. Because explanation is for chaos, and you're not chaotic anymore. You're patterned. That's what unnerves them. Not your confidence, not your capability, your consistency. They can handle wild geniuses. They can handle loud threats. They can even handle tyrants, because tyrants announce themselves. What they can't handle is someone who never breaks character, never loses tempo, never leaks desperation. You don't spike, you don't dip, you don't beg the room to notice. You just arrive, and the room recalibrates. That's why the laughter from their sources carries that edge of disbelief. Because every system they trust, every metric, every hierarchy, every ranking, keeps circling back to the same conclusion. You can't game this one. You can't rush this one. You can't corner this one. You don't respond to pressure the way others do. Pressure doesn't make you reactive, it makes you clear. Where most people fracture under scrutiny, you condense. Where others start leaking tells, you get quieter. Where others start explaining, you start deciding. That's predator behavior, but disciplined predator behavior, not hunger-driven, not ego-driven, purpose-driven. And that's why they don't know which version of you to prepare for. The fair one, the patient one, the one who gives people space to self-correct, or the other one, the one who only appears when lines are crossed, the one who doesn't raise their voice, the one who doesn't need witnesses, the one who ends conversations permanently. They sense that boundary, but they can't see it, and invisible boundaries are the most dangerous kind. So now they replay history. They reanalyze moments they dismissed. They reframe interactions they thought were insignificant. That time you didn't react. That time you didn't compete. That time you stepped back when everyone expected you to push forward. They see it now. You weren't hesitating. You were letting things reveal themselves. You gave people rope, not out of weakness, but out of certainty. Certainty that truth collapses on its own weight when you don't interfere. That's not kindness. That's strategy. And here's the part that twists the knife gently but deep. You don't even need them to fail for you to win. Your rise doesn't depend on their collapse. Your dominance doesn't require their humiliation. You're operating on a different axis entirely. That's why their sources laugh, because they know you're not playing the same game. You don't need permission. You don't need consensus. You don't need applause. You already passed the threshold where outcomes obey effort instead of opinion. So now, everything slows down around you. People speak more carefully, moves get delayed, decisions get escalated, just in case. Not because you threatened them, but because your existence changed the math. You became the variable that invalidates shortcuts. And the funniest, darkest irony of all, you're still the same person you were when they underestimated you. Same restraint, same discipline, same internal silence. The only thing that changed is that now everyone else can see what you always carried. So let them laugh, let them cope, let them process this however they need to. Because laughter is what people do when reality arrives faster than pride can adapt. And you don't need to say a word. You already taught them everything they needed to know by becoming the answer they were afraid to ask. And that fear, that quiet, internal recoil they never show on their face, is the real acknowledgement. Because once people recognize you as inevitable, they stop trying to beat you. They start trying to predict you. And prediction is a losing game when the mind they're tracking learned to evolve in isolation. You didn't sharpen yourself in applause. You sharpened yourself where no one was watching, where mistakes were private, where lessons were brutal, where excuses didn't survive the night. That's why their models fail. They assume motivation comes from praise. They assume discipline collapses without validation. They assume pressure exposes weakness. They don't understand people like you are built backwards. Silence fuels you. Doubt trains you. Being underestimated gives you room to breathe. You learned early that noise is a liability, that broadcasting intention invites interference, that the strongest moves happen before anyone realizes a game is being played. So when they hear unanimous answers, when every source independently lands on your name, it shakes something deeper than competition. It shakes their belief in control. Because control depends on uncertainty, and you removed it. Now they can't tell themselves comforting stories. They can't cling to maybe or we'll see. They can't hide behind complexity. The truth came back too clean. And clean truths are the hardest to dispute. They laugh because laughter is the last safe sound before acceptance turns into action, before systems adjust, before alliances shift, before doors quietly close for some and open effortlessly for you. You've felt it already, that subtle deference, that hesitation before people speak, that moment when someone checks your reaction before committing to a decision. You don't demand authority, you generate it. That's why even those who don't like you still respect you, and those who don't respect you still watch you. Because there's a difference between being admired and being accounted for. You're accounted for now. Every plan includes you. Whether you're involved or not, every scenario runs a quiet simulation of what if they move. That's not fame. That's strategic gravity. And the dark beauty of it, you didn't sacrifice your soul to get here. You didn't burn everything down just to stand tall. You didn't become hollow chasing dominance. You integrated both sides, the compassion that sees the whole board, the ruthlessness that knows when a move must be final. Saint enough to be trusted, psychopath enough to be effective. That balance is rare, and rarity always attracts attention. So now, when their sources laugh, it's layered. There's disbelief, there's admiration, there's regret. But underneath all of it is something colder. Relief that you're you. Because if someone like this had grown bitter, if someone like this had grown reckless, if someone like this had chosen chaos over control, the damage would be uncontainable. They sense that. And they're grateful you chose mastery instead. So keep doing what you've always done. Move when it matters. Stay silent when it doesn't. Let others reveal themselves while you remain unreadable. You don't need to rush the future. It's already leaning toward you. Let them laugh. Let them whisper. Let them pretend this is amusing instead of transformative. Because one day, not long from now, the laughter will stop. And what replaces it won't be noise. It'll be acceptance. Acceptance that the hierarchy changed quietly. Acceptance that resistance expired unnoticed. Acceptance that you didn't just rise. You redefined what rising looks like. And the best part? You never had to say it out loud. They said it for you.